My name's Dave Adams. I have been associated or helped with the turkey hunt in some way or manner since 1993. I was a police officer here in El Dorado. Because of that, we provided security to the hunt. So my first was the banquet in 93. 97, I moved into investigations, became a detective sergeant, and our chief then was real hip on doing community policing. So I went to Marv McGowan, since I'd been working the turkey hunt, and said, how about if I'm your liaison to the department? And he said, great, do it. The chief was all in favor of it. One of the hunters that I got to know, because she had her own security detail, which was Nashville Metro PD officers, was Jeanette Rudy. Well, in 1999, Jeanette Rudy was bringing her sisters back here to El Dorado, Kansas, to dedicate a handicap-accessible playground known as Alton's Playground in memory of her brother, Felix Alton Cantrell, who was special needs. Marv called me and said, can you be available to help with this? I said, sure. He says, well, she's bringing her sisters, and we need to really show them that we like them. I said, not a problem. This is my hometown. What can I do to make them comfortable? And I thought, bake cookies, what the heck? Well, we had a bunch of frozen cookie dough that our daughter's elementary school used as a fundraiser in her freezer. So when they got here, they had a fresh plate of cookies in each of the girls' rooms. And I made sure they had cookies every day. Well, the last day that they were going to be here and fly out, the night before, I said, I ran out of cookie dough. And the only kind of cookies I know how to bake are peanut butter or snickerdoodles. What's your privilege? What's your choice? And everybody said peanut butter. I said, okay. So I made up some peanut butter cookies to send them home. I filled up a 1-gallon round ice cream bucket, holds about 7.5 dozen. And the girls, they were all over it. And I guess there was an argument as to who was going to take the leftover cookies home with them. I didn't get into that. So that following spring, Marv asked if I would bake cookies for 5 of the hunters, one of course being Miss Rudy, and I said, sure, not a problem. But I had to sneak them around to hand them out to those 5 hunters. I did not feel comfortable about that. So I went back to Marv the next year and said, how about if we bake cookies for all the hunters? Oh, yeah, great. I got a hold of our manager out at our local Walmart and got him to donate these cake tins, aluminum cake pans that have the snap-on plastic lids. That's what I gave the cookies in, and I printed up a label because Miss Rudy had already dubbed them cop cookies. And I had a label that said cop cookies on it, had a clip art police officer on there. I made up a cookie Miranda sheet just for fun. And we handed out cookies that way until that manager left and the new managers didn't want to help out in that way. Then I struggled with, what am I going to do? Came up with the Ziploc bags, quart size, because they'll hold between 2 and 2.5 dozen cookies, which is what I was giving to the hunters. Tried that. I actually had one of the hunters come up to me and said, I'm glad you went to the Ziploc bags. I didn't like those pans. Oh, well, good. Well, what makes them so much better? He said, I can take them into the field and have cookies in the field now. And I did this up until 2019. That was the last year before the pandemic, and I told them that was my last year. Well, we figured up at that time I probably had baked 65,000 cookies since 2000. Then we had the pandemic, shut the hunt down for a year, and then they said, well, we're going to have the hunt in 21. So I had already made up my mind I was going to bake cookies for the return. When the Kansas Governor's One Shot disbanded and the guys came back with the Kansas One Shot, I said, I will bake cookies for you. And now, instead of it just being me, my older brother, who's 70, and his son, who's will be 39 this summer, the last 2 years they've come down and helped me, and we can do in one day what used to take me about 2 weeks. Well, my earliest memory was in 93, working the banquet, and I think that was the year Slim Fitchum was here and bought Bill Graves' gun at the auction. And after he spent, I think, $11,000 or $12,000, he just stands up and says, well, let's do it again next year, and donated the gun back. That's a memory that stands out. My most memorable personal moment of the hunt would have to be one evening at the El Dorado Country Club. It was elbow to elbow people. And I knew the shortcut from the bar to the coffee pot, which was over on the dining side, because you cut through the kitchen. I'm standing there in the kitchen, starting to sip my coffee and just kind of let the air out a little bit. Tim Grunhard and Dave Zott from the Kansas City Chiefs walk in, and they're huge. And they look at me and they say, "Sergeant, can we come in?" I looked over at the chef and I said, "This is his domain, not mine. You better ask him." Harvey was a warrant officer in the Army and flew helicopters in Vietnam. He and I would have a barbecue at my house the night before the hunt because he always came in early, and I would let him invite his friends out. I went to the Grand National Waterfowl Hunt. He was there. He says, "I'm going to be your sponsor." Great, Harvey. He would call me every Sunday up until the time he passed, and we would probably talk for an hour or so. Just nothing important, just chat. He's one of the most memorable characters I've ever met. We've seen a lot of people come in through this hunt that they want to come back because we treat them so well. I'm very proud of El Dorado and the people here, and I want to put my best foot forward to make everybody that comes to El Dorado not just feel like, hey, I'm here for the hunt and stuff. I want them to feel at home. My father was a banker, and he always told me about the rule of three when it comes to a dollar, that a dollar will turn over 3 times in a one town. When you think about all the hunters that come in and the money that they spend, it goes into our businesses reinvest there, and you get that turnover, the dollar, and it's a big economic impact on our community. When you're a police officer, you don't see the best people in the best light all the time. So when you can do something that's more fun and rewarding in the respective, you feel good about what you do. That's what it's done for me.